Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
This is a very interesting videos. We talked about the dynamic effect of wind loads, right? And we also have a suspension bridge in Bandra Worli Sea Link, right? What happens that suspension bridge is relatively flexible, and due to wind, it might excite one of the modes of the vibration of the bridge, and it might lead to the failure of the bridge. So all these structures need to design to withstand the effect of wind load. So I'm going to play this video. It's quite dramatic actually. You can have a look at this video and see how the amplification. So you can see the deck of this bridge. What happens that wind starts flowing below and above the deck of the bridge, and because of the pressure differential, it starts above and the below the deck of the bridge, it starts to vibrate. Okay, and of course there are more accurate, I'm just providing explanation in layman terms, but there are more accurate failure studies that have been reported on this failure, Tacoma Narrows Bridge. You can go have a look at those studies. This keeps on vibrating, okay, and the amplitude keeps on increasing till finally it leads to the failure of the building. And I will just directly go to that slide where it leads to the failure of the building. Okay, you can see the amplitude increasing. I mean, when you typically drive over Bandra Worli Sea Link, I mean, I know most of you go there just to take selfies, but I mean, if you have interest in structures, just go and have a look at, like, I mean, it's a great engineering structure, and you can look at the cables that are suspending from the central columns that are there, and how they are suspended, and how the deck is there. So you can just have a look at that the structures. Okay, so finally that vibration actually led to the failure of the deck span. Okay, and so the question is, like, wind would always be there, and once it starts pumping energy into the system, is there any way I can actually minimize the vibration of the system, or actually I can limit the vibration of the system? And what are the different measures that we can take to mitigate the effect of this wind loading, or I could have done to actually solve this problem? So, and we would be studying about all those things in this course itself. Okay, that what could have been done. I mean, it's always easy to say in hindsight, like, this could have been done, but based on principle of structural dynamics, we will see that if an amplitude of a system keeps on increasing, what countermeasures can I take to actually prevent that structure from failing? Okay, so this was the example of wind load. What I'm going to show you, other kind of dynamic load, that is the impact load. After I mean, recent events in 2000, many of the structures are not being now being designed for impact loads. Even before that, actually, structures, even especially critical defense structures, are designed for impact loads. So what I'm going to show you here is a reinforced concrete wall, heavily reinforced concrete wall, and then there is a phantom aircraft, and it is actually impacting into this wall here, okay, to see whether it can breach the wall or not, or whether wall would be safe. So some of the building, especially if you think about nuclear containment structure, or if you think about, like, underground bunkers, or many operation control centers, they are designed against impact load. Of course, you won't design a regular building for this kind of event, because it is not possible during the lifetime of structure. But many of the critical structures are actually designed for this kind of impact. Okay, so let me play this video, quite a dramatic video. So you can see that aircraft completely went into that, but do you think that it actually breached the wall? You can see a lot of damage. So a lot of damage is actually happening. This is the other view of the impact. A lot of damage actually happening, but aircraft actually did not breach the wall. There was a lot of spalling and scabbing. However, the breach, as we define, the complete penetration towards the other side, it did not happen. It actually prevented that. Okay, and you can go ahead and again search this video on YouTube, searching for impact test using F4 Phantom aircraft, and it will show you. Okay, so this is impact load. Other type of load that we encounter is a blast load. What you see here is one of the famous building that was there in US in Oklahoma City. It's a Alfred P. Murrah building. What happened that some of the domestic terrorists, they detonated a van full of ammonia. And if you guys have been following some news, there was also a recent explosion in Beirut. Okay, there also, like, some these fertilizers were actually kept in a dock, and it led to a very big explosion which actually blew almost whole of the downtown of Beirut. Okay, so what happened here, a person, some terrorist kept these bombs next to this building. So it was kept somewhere here. What it did, it took out few of the columns here. Okay, now because of the shock wave, what happened, the pressure started developing below the slabs, okay, of the adjacent columns, and it started, and these slabs were not designed for, like, upward pressure. So it led to first few column failure directly due to the blast, and further failure due to the progressive collapse of the buildings. The most of the failure that you see here is not directly the result of the explosion, but due to the progressive collapse of the building. So these type of structure need to be designed, or the structural element, to sustain the blast load as well, another kind of dynamic load. Okay, and a very simple dynamic load. Many of you would have taken NCC as in your curriculum and during your undergraduate. Can you tell me, have somebody told you that when you walk on a bridge or when you walk on a pedestrian, whether it's a pedestrian bridge or concrete bridge, you are asked to, like, walk in tandem in a periodic fashion. However, on a bridge, you are asked deliberately to break your steps and walk in random fashion. Can any of you tell me why that is?
Sir, to
Resonance.
avoiding achieving resonant frequency.
Correct. Correct. So when you walk, you also apply load on the whatever below your feet is. Okay. Now, if you are a single, like, if you are just by yourself walking, there won't be much effect. However, if there are, let us say, troops, a lot of troops, like, let us say 100, or, like, there are, like, group of 100 people walking in a periodic fashion, what happens, it creates frequency of walking. And because there are 100 people walking, the amplitude is so large. If that frequency of walking matches with the frequency of the pedestrian bridge or other type of bridge that you are walking on, it might lead to failure of the building. And I will show you that is actually happening. This was one of the pedestrian bridge that actually opened in London, and it was open to the public. And people noticed within the first week itself, you can see that there are a lot of people standing, and there are a lot of vibration happening. And I mean, by the inherent nature, what people do, once something starts shaking, they start to shake it more, just to get a fun out of it. So they started doing that, and the pedestrian bridge was actually declared unsafe for any further pedestrian use. Okay, so they had to come up with some countermeasure. So this pedestrian bridge actually did not fail. They closed the bridge, and then they took some countermeasure. So even if the people are still walking, how the resonance could be prevented. And you will learn in a chapter 2 or chapter 3, and they are also showing the example of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge that we saw some slides earlier, that if there is a resonance, and which might happen, like, intentionally or unintentionally, is there any way or countermeasure that I can take so that even in case of resonance, it does not lead to unbounded response that keeps on increasing? Okay, we'll see that how to do that. Okay, so this is the example of bridge, the walking load. Okay, so let us come to the pretext of this dynamics subject. Okay, the pretext is, you have shown a building and an earthquake load is being applied on that. First, we need to say what we are trying to do through this course. Whenever you start a course, you should be very clear about the objective of the course. What are you going to achieve by enrolling for that course? Okay, what are you trying to solve and how you are going to do it and what are within the scope of this course. Okay, so first let me describe the problem statement. The problem statement here is how to build a structure or how to build a system that can sustain dynamic effects of the load and basically mitigate their detrimental effects. Okay, so design a structure or a system or a machine to sustain dynamic effect of load. Okay, and then the question becomes, well, how do I do that? Okay, so the answer could be very simple. Well, you design the structure to sustain that dynamic effect, but there are different steps involved. Okay, so what is the solution? Design structure for dynamic effects of load. And what are the things required for that? First, if you have a structure, it could be a building, it could be a machine, it could be a different system. You need to simplify a complicated structure to a, let us say, very simple structure. For example, this structure can be represented by simple beam and column. Okay, so first you need to create a single degree of freedom system or multiple degree of freedom system, okay, of this structure or any other system so that it is amenable or it is amenable for doing numerical analysis. The second step is get the dynamic properties of the structure. So get the time period of the structure, from its material and the geometric properties. Okay, and using other simplified methods. Once that is there, you apply this vibration, and then once you apply this vibration, you can calculate the dynamic response of the system. So in terms of dynamic response of the system, you can calculate what are the base shear here. Okay, what are the shear forces in the columns, what are the moments in the columns, what are the deflection in the building, so these different response quantities need to be calculated for these dynamic loads so that I can prepare or I can be prepared and I can design my structure to accommodate this much of lateral displacement, this much of base shear, this much of force and moment. Okay, so that is the third step, calculation of the dynamic response of a structure, with the final step, design of a structure to minimize and sustain dynamic load effects. Okay, now through this course, remember first three are analysis steps. Okay, and the fourth step is the design step. Okay, so the scope of this course limited to the first three steps. We are not going to get into the design of a structure. I will show you how does it fit into the bigger picture, fill the gap, that is a structural dynamic course. But the structural dynamics course, the scope of this course is the first three things. It's an analysis course. You are going to see how to analyze a structure. Okay, get the response quantity, but for design, you're probably going to be taking other courses. Okay, so what is the context of this course? Where does this course fits into the overall picture of your curriculum, and how does it help you to equip with the knowledge that is required to get your job? Of course, if your job interest is to get in structural engineering, how does this course fits into the bigger picture? Now, let us first come from the undergraduate courses. If you remember, we discussed steps required to design a structure. So the first step is what? How to find out forces on a structure. Okay, and what did you do? You took a course on engineering mechanics to find out the forces on a structure. Okay, but forces might not be sufficient. Okay, you also need to find stress and strain on a structure. Okay, because most of the failure actually happens because of stress and strain and can be represented through stress and strain rather than forces. Okay, so to get stress and strain, you took a course on solid mechanics in your undergraduate. Okay, and then you also needed to find out how you can find internal forces. So remember, engineering mechanics did not teach you to find out internal forces, just the reactions, support reactions, and the external reaction. For internal forces and deflection, you took the course in structural analysis or structural mechanics, more appropriately, let us call it structural mechanics. Okay, and then you took, after you did these three analysis courses, okay, you took the fourth, you took other courses, specialized courses to design specific type of structure like steel design and concrete design. Okay, now in the graduate curriculum, the steps required for now advanced analysis and design. Okay, If you want to find out forces on a structure, you have advanced structural mechanics course, which I think is CE611. This is again focused to static loads. If you want to find out stress and strain, the undergraduate course was only focused on linear stress and strain. This graduate course would be focused on non-linear as well. So you take a course on advanced solid mechanics, which is CE603. Okay. Then to do that, to get the forces and to get the stress and strain, you need to be accustomed with some of the numerical methods. You can to find that out. And that's why there is a course in numerical methods. I might have confused with the course number here, but you can look it up. Okay. And then all these courses, they are focused on static load. Till now, we have not talked about dynamic load. Okay. But in advanced analysis and design, we need to do dynamic load as well. And that is most of the loads that would be experienced by the structure would be dynamic load. And that's where my course in structural dynamics come. It gives you, it lets helps you analyze a system for dynamic loads, lets you find out the response of the system subject to dynamic forces. Okay, so this is the overall bigger picture. Okay, if you are already confused, why I'm doing this and that, and what is the role of each of these courses, I hope this puts everything in perspective. Okay, so again, let me come to the problem statement for our course, for structural dynamics course. Okay, so what is the problem statement that we discussed? The problem statement is we have to determine the loading history. It could be an earthquake, it could be a walking load, it could be a periodic loading, it could be a blast, it could be impact load. First, get the loading history. Okay, then find out the structure that you need to analyze or design. Okay, and you need to develop a mathematical model of the structure. Okay, so that is the second step. Okay, third step is to set up the equation of motion. Once you develop the mathematical model, you need to set up the equation of motion, which is a differential equation. We will see how to do that in the next chapter, basically next lecture. Okay, once I set up and solve this equation of motion, okay, then I can obtain the response quantities that would be utilized for the design. Although design is not within this one, we are going to obtain the numerical response as part of this course. Okay, so I hope this workflow is clear to you, because the whole course actually strive to fulfill these steps or the solve this problem statement. Okay, so in terms of load history, I am presenting you different type of load history and their time variation. So if you look at a harmonic load, you have to think it, where do you experience this kind of load? For example, harmonic load might be due to a machine vibrating on a floor. It can produce a harmonic load. Okay, and there could also be periodic load, like this is the representation of walking. Okay, so if you consider load due to walking, it can be represented as this periodic load. Now you have to keep in mind, all harmonic loads are periodic load, but vice versa is not true. So a periodic load might not be harmonic. Harmonic load can be represented as sine or cosine function. Okay, periodic load is something that repeats itself after a certain period. And then there could be random excitation like a earthquake load, or there could be wind load represented like this. And then there could be impact load, which is a sudden jump in the load. And then there could also be blast load. All these are impact, blast, are very short duration load compared to earthquake. And you will see that for different type of loads, how our approach to solve the system differs. And we would actually do examples to solve the system for all different type of loads. Okay. So the second step was mathematical model of a structure. Okay, in terms of mathematical model, you can simplify a structure to as simple as you want. It could be a single degree of freedom system, and we will discuss that what degree of freedom means. So what you have here is a water tank which is supported on a single column, or you can have like a walkway in which a heavy slab is supported on multiple steel column. For all practical purposes, this can be simplified as a single mass M and then a single column, equivalent column of stiffness K. And this is called a single degree of freedom system. Or there could be a more complicated system, for example, a building, which could be simplified through to a series of beam or columns like this, okay, which with the slab loads acting on these beam and columns. okay, on these levels. Or it could be further simplified if I consider all mass at each story to be located through a single mass, and this all these columns represented by these stiffnesses. Now you might ask, how do I know which one is the correct or accurate representation? Well, it depends on the problem definition. What are you trying to find out through this? Well, if your goal is just to find out the base shear, even for this building, the single degree of freedom representation would be good enough. However, if your job is to find out forces in the beams and columns, then you would have to use the beam column representation. If your job is to just find out story shear, okay, then this representation is good enough. Okay, so that depends what you are trying to solve or find through that system. Okay, so the components of a dynamic system, if you think of any body, any deformable body, and if you apply force to a deformable body, and you have to think physically what happens. If there is a deformable body and you apply a force, there might be motion or acceleration. And of course, if it can deform, there might be deformation. Okay. And you can imagine any system, any real system in the life, if you see, it won't be perfectly elastic. All the systems, when you deform, they are accompanied with some sort of energy dissipation. It might be small enough to neglect in certain cases, but definitely energy dissipation is present in the deformation when you deform any system. So any dynamic system has three integral properties: mass, stiffness, damping. Okay, so when you think of systems around you, whether you consider a structure or a system or a body, even as simple as anything, a human body, even that can be represented through mass, stiffness, and damping. And that brings us to the most simplest representation of a dynamic system, which is a spring mass damper representation, in which we represent any system through its stiffness, its energy dissipation capacity, and the mass of the system. And if you apply an external force, Ft, there would be displacement. Okay, and if there are complicated system, what happens? We connect these systems through this spring mass damper. Okay, so we connect these systems and we represent it like this. Okay, so it can be multiple connection like that here. Okay, so even a complicated system can be represented as a combination of spring and mass damper. Okay, so dynamic behavior of any system can be studied by modeling it as a combination of spring, mass, and damper elements. Okay, so before ending the class today, I would like yourself to ask yourself basically few questions, and that these questions basically would be answered in the subsequent lectures that we do. Okay, you guys would have seen shock absorption in cars, in any different type of vehicles, that helps you to glide over, like, you know, very bad potholes that we have in Mumbai city. Have you ever wondered how that car's shock absorption works? Or have you ever wondered, if you as an engineer had to design that shock absorption, what are the critical parameters that you need to find out? Okay, and you might have been traveling with rails or the metros. You see that those rails, that steel beams, are actually kept on ballasts. Ballasts are basically crushed stones. Why not simply on a sand, or why not simply on, like, you know, concrete? So why do they do that? Okay, and if you travel by flight, I don't know whether you noticed, have you ever noticed on which wheels, whether the front wheels or the rear wheels, the aircraft lands on, and why? Why, like, you know, that decision to either land on front wheel or the rear wheels? Okay, and what will happen when a very fast load hits a very stiff structure and a very fast load hits a very flexible structure? All these does not require any mathematical formulation, although we would discuss mathematical formulation of this. What I want you to do, ponder about this question, or think in terms of real life, how these questions can be answered. What is your impression? Okay, and then we discussed in the subsequent slide the answer to these questions. Okay, so with this, I would like to conclude today's lecture.